Hello, my beautiful souls. This is 10, and I'm your host. And this is 10 vs. Kate. So, as you guys know, this is a vlog where I might talk about, spirituality. I might talk about emotional wellness. I might just talk about life and my reflections. And sometimes before I do a episode, I'm really asking myself some things. I'm asking myself, how can I live a better life? And I was kind of hit with some really hard stuff recently, just fairly recently, like today. Um, I had to question myself a little bit. I went on full hermit mode where in order to survive, I had to prioritize very differently. I have a suspicion I'm autistic, like level 3, but also too in like the first 2 years of my son's life, I had really bad postpartum depression with a severe case of like not like super severe, but like moderate enough that like moderate paranoia and just really a lot of anxiety, and I actually went through a lot of stuff with toxic work environments, like a lot for like a 2 year stretch, and it felt really confusing and hard to interact with other people. And it felt like I never had enough time for myself. As a mom, that's a normal thing, because you constantly have to take care of another kiddo. You have to make sure they're safe, they're happy, they're learning good values, they're enriched, they're nourished, a lot of different things. There's a high standard for moms, and sometimes even a very low standard, and that I do see society wise. There's like low standards and really high standards, and I'm in the high standards group, so it's exhausting. It's really exhausting. And someone recently told me, like, you're a really good mom, and I was like, oh, you're talking to me. You're talking. Oh, okay, that's good. I have professionals telling me that, so that's good. So there were a couple of people that reached out to me because it was my birthday, because I'm 37, and I went purposely to, talk to my brother, and then I ran into an old friend, and just a series of interesting social interactions that were mostly kind of thrust on me a little bit, not fully, but yeah, a little bit. It made me like have a lot of like an intensity of emotions where I felt kind of confused and overwhelmed, and I thought to myself, am I doing something wrong? Like, should I be socializing more? Should I follow the social rule of caring about other people before myself? And don't get me wrong, like, I do care about people. I'm scared that they're gonna have these demands on me that I cannot meet. Like, for example, my younger brother, I really care about him. I want to include him on some future family things, that we're going to be doing in the future. And I want to include my family. I want to do family social interactions kind of thing. But sometimes when I have my depression and and I feel more burnt out and drained, it's harder for me to engage with them socially. So then I do have to be a hermit to recover my energies. It's not because I'm an introvert, it's because if I don't come back to center, I'm going to do some really. I don't want to be a crazy person, let's just say that. When you have kind of this awareness that your ADHD and your potentially your autistic self is kind of puts you at odds with other people, because in the sense where you can get overwhelmed and shut down, or do some really odd behaviors. And it's just, I don't have the energy to mask like I used to. When I became a mother, I didn't think about not masking. And so over the past 6 months to 8 months, I have been allowing myself to mask less. And that has meant like looking at the people that want to be my friend and ask myself questions like, who do I prioritize? But also, who do I just be willing to just, I can't do this friendship anymore, or we don't have anything in a relationship, we don't have any common interests. And those are hard questions to ask because, we don't, I think women hate being the bad guy. We don't like being the bad guy. And in terms of social relationships, I'm also I'm very aware that there is a financial component to relationships. And because I'm a mom, my money priorities are so very different too. I have to pay for daycare, which is about, like, I'm lucky it's on the low end, which is about like 1,200, right? Not that we should talk about money on a vlog, but like if you think about, like, rent, like, come on, like rent and car and all that, like, oh my god, it's just, going out to hang out with people, going out and doing fun things is not like how it used to be when I was a single person. And it's not like I can go out after like my kid falls asleep and go have fun because I have to watch him. And I feel like a total douchebag if I went to go have fun and my partner watched our kid. Like, that's like, what? No, like, we're not gonna have fun, so let's not have fun together. I'm joking. Kind of. I feel like single people do not understand fully, and I think that's why less people are having children, is I think single people are becoming more and more aware there's so much about having a kid that they don't understand. I think they kind of like go, wait a minute, I'm hearing all these stories about being a parent. I don't exactly understand and fully grasp the level of all of this, so I think I'm going to be just safe than sorry. And you can't blame them because there is a financial cost, there's a social cost, there's even, in terms of your own personal family, there's a cost. You're not the same person cost. You are also don't always have time to think and understand yourself. There's a you cost. And so when I luckily have a little time here and there when he's asleep, mostly when he's asleep, where I ask myself, like, for 5 minutes, I'll ask myself really important questions. And I'll say, am I being a bad person for not wanting to spend time with people? And the interesting answer to all of that actually was, no, you did that because you had no choice. You're going through a tough 2-year period that only you could understand. And it was either you survive or not. Literally. And now coming into awareness that maybe that self-centeredness, maybe, yes, it's for a survival purpose, but now I'm asking myself, well, in the next phase of this life, like, do I envision myself socializing more? And part of the answer is kind of complicated. It's like a yes and a no. And it's like, well, maybe yes, because your kid is older. But by how much? Not much. And so the thing is, like, well, it's like, again, it's about prioritization. It's like, okay, well, then we're going to want quality over quantity, right? So when I do socialize with people, it's got to be quality, right? Yes, which means it's going to be about, okay, let's make sure this is a quality situation. And what I mean by quality is, well, I'm going to go on vacation anyways eventually, right? So do I bring some of my own family with me? Maybe not. If I'm going to go to a really fun kid-friendly area? Am I going to include someone I think that would enjoy it? Maybe. It's a two birds with one stone kind of deal. And there's nothing wrong with that when you become a mom, because I think when you become a mom, when you have any little bit to yourself, you do have to ask yourself a little bit, like, is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? Does anyone remember, like, put down, like, in the comments, like, do you remember that episode? It was a WB show where they had this cartoon, good idea, and then you had, like, the light bulb, and the guy was doing the good idea, and then bad idea, and they show you what was a really stupid idea to do, and then the guy having a bad situation occur because he did the bad idea. I remember giggling a lot about that. Going, that's silly. But I think it impressed on me as a young person becoming a 37-year-old. It's really important to ask yourself, is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? Is it a good idea to guard and protect your energies? Yes. Is it a bad idea to overextend yourself? Yes. But also, too, is it also, too, a bad idea to be so self-centered that you can no longer empathize with people and you ignore other people's plight? Maybe no. Is it okay? Is it a good idea to do a two birds with one stone type of situation? Yes. Yes, it's a good idea because I'm getting a break from my kid. Ish, not really fully. Technically kind of, sometimes not. When you bring a kid over to see their grandparents, it just depends on the day. Sometimes the kid does not want to move anywhere near away from you. That's another issue. But I mean, if you are actively reflecting, it's so much easier to know thyself. And when you know thyself, you can minimally inflict the less harm on yourself and the less harm on other people. But the problem, though, is when you become someone who realizes they might have an undiagnosed autism disorder, you realize that too much socialization is actually really bad for your mental well-being. Very often you see RBT ABA services. Sometimes they're geared to help kids socialize better, and that's totally fine to some degree because you do want them to understand social norms and social cues and things like that. But we also too need to teach kids when to know when they need to take a break and come away from social situations and re-energize themselves. Because as someone who felt overly socialized, or I should say socially conditioned to be social, that had a negative impact on me. It really did, because I felt like I had no rights to myself. I had no rights to my things. I had no rights to my money. I had no rights to my time. I had no rights to my feelings, no rights to my thoughts. I had no rights to be me and set boundaries with people. And so I felt like that I literally wasn't allowed to have freedom to just do and be and kind of, like, go away from people. I felt like I always had to be socially involved with people. And I think because of that, I had a lot of sensory related situations that came about. I think I had a lot of, what's it called? They call it that thing you do to get, and the guys sometimes do it where you have the, like, I'll feel the, like, energy and the feelings in my body, and I'll come up and I'll feel really uncomfortable, like you're having a belly ache, but it's not a belly ache. And so you have to kind of like shake it off and get it off, because it's okay to feel it, but we're like, oh, this is a little much, this is a lot, this is like hot potato, except you're doing shake a potato. And so you're like stimming, right? Stimming, yeah, because this helps regulate our bodies. So when you're in a social situation where you're expected to look people in the eyes, right, what happens to me is it physically hurts. So if, and I'm like, sometimes I have to remind people now, because I'm not doing it so much, I'm not masking as much, I'll say, like, I'm not looking you in the eyes, it's nothing against you, but I don't always tell them it hurts. And sometimes being around people, depending on what's going on, is incredibly physically uncomfortable for me. And it depends on what's going on. Because if you think it's like, well, that's like kind of funny. Weren't you going shopping and going to get stuff? You seem to greatly enjoy it. It's like, yeah, because I am not expected to socialize, and my ADHD brain wants this, wants that, wants this in my brain, and it needs the input in my brain to go ding. And so when you're neurotypical, it gets just really complicated. I don't know if this was a really good vlog. I'm going to keep on doing these vlogs because even if they look good or don't look good, I feel like more and more now we do have to talk about what it's like to be an adult person, a neurodivergent adult person, and talking about these complicated stuff, and also to recognizing, like, it is very hard. I really feel for the people that are in my life, because, and I sometimes feel a lot of guilt about it, and sometimes I feel ashamed that I can't be a neurotypical person, because it's really hard for people, because I'll say insensitive stuff. I'll sometimes take things personally without meaning to. They'll say something and I'll remember that they said it, and I need a mental break away from them for a while, because I'm trying to rehumanize them to me, He's like, and that's the thing, by the way, like, why doesn't make sense, and it's not anything personal, but when you have all these like complicated aspects of who you are, choosing whether you socialize is not like a simple yes or no question. It's not like whether, it's like you're in a lifeboat, right? And you have to ask yourself, okay, like, how many people could be in that lifeboat? And I'm thinking, well, myself, my son, my partner, my dog definitely need to be in that lifeboat. And so there are these other lifeboats nearby me, and I can see them, and I can see my brothers, I can see my sister, my parents, and you think, well, I want to get closer to those lifeboats, right? But I don't always want to be so near them sometimes. But then you have these other people who want to be closer to me, and I see them in the distance and they're waving, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, like, how do I prioritize all this? Because it's going to be a lot of effort to get to these people, and then also to come back to my family, because I literally spent a lot of my 20s prioritizing people outside my family. And I'm thinking to myself, you had your time to be prioritized. You had your time. It's nothing personal. I only have such a big lifeboat, and I only have so much to give to go to your way. If I go to you, I'm going to want to go to my family. That's going to be more time. Not to get so... I feel like I should wrap this up, because this is not going to be one of my better episodes, and I don't even expect it to be a good episode. I don't really, because of the fact that it is kind of confusing, but this is what it feels like in a very overstimulated, overwhelmed brain when you're trying to understand what's the best choice socially. This is what it looks like for an ADHD autistic person who look normal enough to function enough. But we only function enough if we prioritize well enough, which means that in order for me to do my bills, in order for me to make sure my car is fixed, in order for me to be a mom, that means that I can't always socialize. So, I mean, if you think like someone looks normal on the surface, and they seem they're doing well, like the thing that used to piss me off, I'd see people and asking for help, and they said, you did well enough in school, you're doing okay. And I would tell them all the things I weren't doing okay, and I'm like, why can't I get help? Because I did well academically? Is that the standard? What about my social relationships? And the reality, though, in order for an autistic ADHD person to do good enough in this society, there has to be a level of sacrifice that neurotypicals will never face. And that's kind of why I try not to feel too guilty. I will feel guilt sometimes, but I'm like, I have to remind myself I'm in this lifeboat. I'm in this lifeboat while neurotypicals are on yachts and neurotypicals are on motorboats and or a really nice cruiser of some kind. You know, I don't have that. I have a lifeboat. It's sad, but it's true. And I know this was a bit of a scramble of a hot mess of an episode, but this is the vlog today, I guess. I wish you well, love and light, marry me, blessed be, amen. But just remember, a lot of my old episodes are going to go disappear because they're not in alignment with who I am currently. Right now, I am. Though my approach right now is like, I'm not doing channel messages, I'm not doing tarot card readings for anyone. It's for me when I do them. And the approach is vlogging, is reflections, honesty. I might give you some really cool tidbits on mental wellness. I might tell you what works really well for me. And what really works for me is making sure I'm always prioritizing. I ask myself a ton of questions. I ask myself, is this good? Is this a good idea or is this a bad idea? That's just a reality. You know, because as long as you are a mystery to yourself, things are going to be harder. Which is will. Love and light, marry me, and I hope you enjoyed this vlog.